Joining us now, Jared Bernstein, a member of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. So overall, Jared, this is a good news day. This is twice as many jobs as analysts had anticipated for July, likely not what the White House anticipated from a job report before you got the numbers late last night. Also, last time we spoke, you said the U.S. was transitioning to a more steady and stable pace of economic growth. What's your reaction to all this? And I'm going to also ask you, of course, about Senator Sinema climbing on board and you about to have a major breakthrough on a big economic plan.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Look, anytime we have a month where the American people have over 500,000 new jobs for them to choose from, that's a great month for the country and for the job market. We now have an unemployment rate at 3.5%. That is tied for the lowest in 53 years. We have now, and I'm not sure this has been fully reported, we have now clawed back all of the jobs that were lost from payrolls due to the pandemic-induced recession. Now, what does this mean? It means that we're facing one of the most welcoming job markets in our history, and from our perspective, but more importantly, from the perspective of working Americans, that's an extremely important backdrop to a period of highly elevated, unacceptably high inflation.
So this is a huge number in terms of private sector jobs. We're, as you point out, pre-pandemic levels. What kind of response, though, do you anticipate from the Federal Reserve? Are they going to have to raise interest rates even higher than expected because they're not at that balancing act? They have not slowed the economy, and there are going to be concerns, market concerns as well.
Sure. First of all, let me just clarify. I think last month we were talking about having regained all the private sector jobs that were lost. Now we're talking about the full spate of jobs throughout all the economy sectors. If you add them all together, payrolls are back to slightly above where they were pre-pandemic. By the way, some of those sectors are really turning in stellar gains, and one of the most important from the president's perspective is manufacturing. The recovery in manufacturing employment is the strongest the sector has seen since 1953. That's before even I was born, so that's how far back that goes. As far as the Federal Reserve, look, you know probably better than most that we don't comment on Federal Reserve policy. We respect their independence. From our perspective, the backdrop of a strong labor market, which provides consumers with the resources they need to keep consumer spending going, is really important for the underlying strength of the recovery. Remember, consumer spending is almost 70% of this economy, and most people get their paychecks through the job market, of course. So that's why we think that this is consistent with the transition to steady and stabler growth.
So let me ask you then also about this package, major improvements on trying to combat climate. You're giving up, though, closing the loophole on carried interest. It seems like, once again, the big money interests, the hedge fund guys have won out, and no administration has been able to close that loophole. It doesn't improve the tax code in terms of fairness, but according to all reports, you're going to get a good score that this is going to actually reduce the deficit. So you think you can survive the scrub and move this package forward this weekend?
Yeah, I would say we're really optimistic about this package. I mean, there are other people who can talk to you about the nooks and crannies of the legislative push. From an economic policy perspective, fairness has always been one of the key aspects that this president brings to the table when he's thinking about tax policy. Now, there are other things in this bill. One of the most important, which remains in the proposal, is to give the IRS the resources they need to close the tax gap. That's the difference between what people owe to the IRS and what they pay. It is a particularly pronounced problem at the very high end, people with a bevy of tax lawyers who find ways to evade. Defunding the IRS has actually been a shadow tax cut strategy of many people who oppose tax fairness. That's something the president is striking out against very strongly here with the Inflation Reduction Act. Yes, a $300 billion in deficit reduction, really important, not just for our fiscal accounts, but also that's a disinflationary part of the plan. That helps on inflation. In terms of fairness, yes, we got to keep pushing for fairness in the closing the carried interest loophole, but now there's talk of a buyback tax of 1%, and that's also a fairness issue. So we will continue to push on tax fairness, and the plan is still very robust in that regard.